let's begin with implementation. The first thing that I'll do is, when we talk about this implementation of dynamic memory management, we have some standard library functions also which are available. And they have been provided to us traditionally through C language. So we will be discussing those standard library functions which are available, which have been traditionally provided to us by C. And then we'll turn towards what changes happen in C++. And once we finish with the traditional way of carrying out those operations, then as I promised, I'll be talking about what new things, what new developments have happened in this particular area, which has made C++ very, very interesting and quite safe to use. Remember, the most important thing is quite safe to use. That's the most important thing that you have to keep in mind. Last time when we were discussing concept of memory, if you remember, I said one of the biggest reason of failure of C++ application is misuse of pointers. And so nowadays, many of the new generation languages have restricted pointers. They are references. But in C++, there is a lot of movement that is happening to make it easier for developer to use. And since C++ 11 and 14, we have changed several changes that have been made to this language, where the responsibility onto us as a developer has reduced substantially. But although we will be going ahead with the new style, it makes sense for us to also look at how it was done traditionally. And once we complete those things, then I'll discuss about what new features have been introduced in C++. And remember, I find some ex-students over here. These are topics that we have not yet explored during our previous sessions. And neither many people are aware of those particular topics. C++ has changed as a language significantly. Now it's time for us to also look and adopt those new changes that has happened to this particular language. But I cannot jump onto those new features or new changes that have been made, and they're quite welcome. Na? Keep in mind, C++, C are quite scary when we talk about dynamic memory management. But now that's not the case actually. I'm actually eager to share with you the new features, but it doesn't make sense for us to look into those new features. You will not appreciate till the time you do not see how it was done traditionally. So let's begin with a journey wherein we'll see as to how traditionally dynamic memory management was done in C++. We'll start with some library functions, and these library functions have been provided to us since C days. So I'll discuss those library functions first. And once we are done with those library functions, we'll move on to the operators which have been supplied to us in C++. So let's start. So just a quick look at what we had discussed last time. When we started off last time, we had an overview of what dynamic memory allocation, what memory is all about. We understood memory is nothing but just an address, or memory addresses are nothing but just a location memory where something is stored. There can be data, there can be instruction, those things we had talked about. And when we talk about address, it's not address of all the bytes, it's only the first byte, the base address, because your data or instructions may span across multiple bytes. So we are only going to get the first address. Then we talked about early days, developer had to take the responsibility of allocation memory. Nowadays, the languages take care of it, so we don't really have to bother about it. And to access those memory location, we have this concept of pointers. So this is all what we had discussed last time. Pointers are special variables which are going to store address of variables. So we are going to discuss, and we talked about large applications. Rather, it's very difficult to keep a track of pointers, although pointers have a lot of benefits, but it comes at a cost. And the cost is risk of bugs which may be there. And pointers are useful and sometimes only necessary when we are passing arrays from one function to another. We cannot do without using pointers. Dynamic memory allocation, dynamic data structures that you would like to implement, trees and graphs and other things, they are best done through dynamic memory allocation. Whatever link structure that we had, so they are powerful, they are dangerous as well. Pointer arithmetics, if you misuse those pointers, you will get to know about that problem not during compile time. You will get to know about those problems only when the programs are running. So this is all that we had discussed last time. And nowadays we have these restricted pointers called as references. They just make the life a bit safe. So they are also pointers, references, but they are something whose value cannot be changed. That means they will constantly point to the same location throughout their lifetime. They will not point to different variables at different times. So that was about references. And references are neat and clean to use because those operators like star, star, and star, those will go off. So those scary dereferencing kind of thing will not be there anymore. So notations are actually easier. And problems with fixed size arrays, if I create an array, you may either waste a lot of memory, and you may have allocated more memory than what you have what we really require. So you cannot resize that array, you cannot make it small size, and there could be a lot of wastage of memory that can happen. Neither can you increase the size of an array. So once created, they are all of fixed size. So this is what we had discussed last time, and there is where this concept of dynamic allocation comes into picture, wherein we would like to allocate memory as per, this is quick revision about what we had seen last time. We would like to allocate memory based on a requirement, which we can expand, which we can reduce, whatever we would like to do. Then we identified what's the role of an OS. The most important operation that the OS actually carries out is memory management and file management, device management, memory management, allocation and deallocation of resources. So resources for what? Resources for the process, as well as the resources for your the request that you make within your application as well. So all those things are managed as efficiently as possible by the OS. And we talked about the OS memory manager, the process memory manager, and so on. And we also explored runtime stack. We understood that's an area where the functions are actually stored. The state of the function is being maintained. And every time you give a call to the function, this actually gets created. It's like instantiating a function is what we had talked about. So all the return value, the return address, everything about the function is stored on that stack frame. And that stack frame is nothing but an activation record. Every time you give a call to a function, this activation records get created. Every time you return from that function, that activation records get destroyed, and so on. So it stores a lot of information, and every that function terminates, the corresponding activation record is destroyed. But this is managed by the system for you automatically. You don't have to really worry about managing a stack. And the process cannot directly manipulate stack, but it is allowed to access those portions of that corresponding to the local variable. That means if I have some local variables inside the function, those local variables are stored on this activation record, and I can very well access them in as long as my control is within the function where those variables, local variables, have been defined. So that was about activation record. And the area of our interest for today's discussion is heap, which is an area where dynamic allocation takes place. Whenever you make a request to the OS for allocation of memory, OS actually allocates memory from this particular portion called as heap. And you can at the most make a request to the OS, not necessarily that every time you make a request, your request will be satisfied. When you make a request, your request may be satisfied. It may allocate memory and return you the base address, and your request may be denied as well, because that much big of free block may not be available. And we also call this heap as a free store, where dynamic memory allocation takes place. Used for dynamic allocation within the application, it's allocated from the reserved area of the system memory called as heap. So from within the heap, this area is what we are going to use. It's a pool of memory available for you to allocate and deallocate. Important thing is dynamic allocation is talking about, we are talking about allocation as well as deallocation of memory as and when required. When you want, you need to allocate. When you want to destroy that particular block of memory, we should be in a position to release that block of memory. And we have two operators which we have to discuss and master: new and delete. And we talked about a typical structure where is a stack and text area where instructions are stored, initialized segment, data segment, where all the global variables which have been initialized are stored, uninitialized data segment where the variables which have not been initialized are stored. And then there is a stack and a heap where there is no clear-cut boundary. Stack grows downwards, heap grows upwards, and all command line arguments that we pass, they are stored at a high address and so on. So this was a typical memory area, memory layout of a C++ application. So these are some basic things that we had discussed. And we talked about heap, we talked about text segment. Important thing about this text segment was this memory area is read only. So we cannot actually even accidentally make changes to this area. It is fixed and it is shared. So multiple copies of it will not get created. So any function that is stored only once. So it will not be like multiple copies of the function gets stored. That will never happen. So this is all that we had discussed. It's an initialize segment. If I define a variable int max equal 99 and I also initialize that particular variable, that will get stored in this initialize segment. If I had created an array or something like that and I had not initialized it and this was globally defined, it will get stored in uninitialized data segment and so on. So let's begin with our discussion. So we are going to have a comparative analysis between how it was done through standard library function and how it is done through the operators which have been supplied to us. One of the most commonly used standard library function for carrying out this operation is a function called as malloc. So we have this function called as malloc, which is used for dynamic memory allocation. So it allocates a specified block of memory on the system heap. So it is for you to specify how many bytes of memory you would like to allocate. That is passed to this particular function as a parameter. Note, the parameter that we are passing is not of type integer, it's of size underscore t. Remember, we talked about this size underscore t operator even earlier. If I say integer domain will have negative values as well as positive values. We are never going to allocate memory which is -5 bytes or -10 bytes. That's never going to happen. So we would like to have, if you talk about size of anything, size of a variable, we have an operator called as size of. And what size of returns? Suppose if I say size of integer, normally on a regular machine, it will return the answer as 4. So what is that 4? That's a size of that particular variable, how much memory it is occupying or how much memory it actually requires. So whenever you talk about size in C++ or in C, that size is, if you look at the data type, it should not be integer. It is taken to be of type size underscore t. So size of also it returns you size underscore t. It's an hypothetical data type. And when you are talking about size, you should rather take a variable of type size underscore t. It will never have negative value. It will always have 0 and above kind of positive values and things. So malloc, you can make a request, and what will happen? When you make a request, it will search for specified size of memory on the system heap. Say you said malloc of 10. So it's going to search for 10 bytes of memory on the heap. Now, if it finds a contiguous block of 10 bytes on the heap, it will allocate that particular 10 bytes and return the base address of that particular block of memory. But return type, if you look at of this particular function, the return type of this function is void star. That means memory on its own does not have a type. Memory is just memory. So it will just allocate that block of memory. Memory doesn't have a type. So it's going to return an address. Now it is for you to decide as to what is the purpose of this block of memory that you have allocated. So it returns address of type void star. If I create a variable of type integer, we say its address is int star. If I create a variable of type character, we say its address is of type char star. What actually gets allocated over here is a block of memory. Now you decide for what purpose you would like to use that particular block of memory, and for that purpose you will have to typecast that particular block of memory and convert it into an appropriate type. For malloc, it does not make any difference. It's only going to allocate a chunk of memory for you. So we said malloc, it will allocate some block of memory. It returns address which is of type void star. Any address, any section of your memory does not have a type. It's all addresses. It's all addresses, simple addresses. Now it's for you to decide what you plan to store over there. But if malloc fails to allocate memory, it returns value as null. Now this, I'm going to talk about this null again. The next session, tomorrow's next session, day after tomorrow, we'll talk about this null. Now null is anything which is represented like by value 0 kind of thing. So it means that pointer is currently not pointing to anything. That means that block of memory is not been allocated. And there is some change that we now do in C++ when you talk about null. It is not recommended to use null now. So we go in for something called as null PTR. Now, how and why, I'll discuss later. For time being, we'll use null. Since on success, malloc returns void star pointer, that means it just returns an address. Address of what? It just returns an address. Address of nothing. It's just a location in the memory where that block of memory has been allocated for you. Now, you need to typecast it into and convert into appropriate type. Now, what's an appropriate type? Depends upon what kind of data you plan to store over there. Say I have allocated, let's say 20 bytes. I can store 20 characters. But if I'm going to store 20 characters, that each block of byte of memory should have address of type char star and not void star, because you're storing characters over there. So it's for you to convert this void star into char star. But suppose you're going to store integers. Now 20 bytes are good enough for you to store 5 integers. So if there are 5 integers you're going to store, so address of an integer cannot be void star. Address of integer should be int star. It's an address of a variable of type integer. Typecast. So depending on what kind of data you would like to store, you can actually typecast and you can go ahead storing some data over there. So malloc allocates equivalent memory equal to the size of the object. So and which we forcefully treat as an object. Say you have a student object. You have a product object. The product has some kind of elements inside it. Say product ID, product rate, and number of things. Say size of the product was say 50 bytes. So if I say malloc of 50, so it's just going to allocate 50 bytes of memory. Now it's for you to decide, it's for you to convert that block of 50 bytes into a variable. That means it has not actually created a structure. It has not created an integer. It has not created a character. It has only allocated a chunk of memory. Now, since you plan to store integers, you typecast as int star. If you plan to store a product class object, typecast as product star. So malloc actually does not create variables. It only allocates memory, which is possibly large enough to accommodate your variable and store that variable into that particular block of memory. So you want to store an object, so you need to allocate memory which is large enough to accommodate that object. So if you allocated 50 bytes and your object is of size anything less than 50 bytes, you can very well store your object into that particular block of memory. So you'll have to cast that particular base address of that block of memory into the type of the object and so on. Since objects are not created using malloc, constructor functions are not called. So when you talk about C++, whenever an objects are created, constructor functions obviously have to be called. Constructors take the responsibility of initializing that particular object to its correct state. But then malloc is not constructing variables, and objects are nothing but variables of class type. So here objects are not created, so there is no way constructors are going to get called. So no constructor will get called over here when we construct an object. It's only allocating a block of memory which we have to treat as if it's an object. Object has not got created. We'll use that memory to store object, to carry out operations, but actually object did not get created. We are forcefully treating that chunk of memory as if it's an object. So no constructors are called, neither destructors will get called. Malloc only allocates memory equal to the size of the object, depending on what parameter have you passed. Memory allocated using function malloc can be released by using free. That means you are allocating memory, and for some reason you have finished with the requirement. You don't no longer require that particular block of memory. Now it doesn't make sense for us to just hold on to that particular block of memory even if I have finished its utility. It's our time for us to release that block of memory. Now if we release that block of memory, we have another function, standard library function called as free. Similar to that, we also have another function called as calloc. So malloc, calloc, realloc, these are three functions which we use for allocation. I will be discussing those functions and then I'll go ahead with the demonstration. So we also have a function called as calloc. It is similar to malloc, but there is a slight difference. It takes in two parameters, size n items and size of t. In malloc, we had only size underscore t size. That means you said I would like to have one block of 20 bytes. Okay, and 20 bytes if I wanted to store 5 integers. So here what we'll do is I'll say size underscore t n items. So I'll say 5, comma 4. So 5, comma 4 means 5 into 4, that is 20 bytes of memory. So you can specify how many variables you would like to create and what's the size of each variable is what we are going to specify. So there is a slight difference as to how we go ahead specifying it. Here we say how many variables you would like to create and what is the size of every variable is what we specify. So I want to store 20 integers. So I'll say n items, I'll say 20, comma, each variable has a size 4 bytes. So 20, comma 4, that is 100 bytes of memory or whatever it is, 80 bytes of memory that will get allocated. It takes in two arguments and allocates memory of n items, each of size number of bytes. So here we specify how many variables you would like to have and what is the, how many blocks you would like to have. Instead of saying variables, how many blocks you would like to have. Each of that block is of what size, and all those blocks are stored in contiguous location. And all those blocks are initialized to value 0. This is important. Malloc does not give you an assurance that they will be initialized to 0. It may, no assurance. Calloc provides an assurance that each of the block is initialized to value as 0. Return address on success, that means if it successfully in allocating memory, it's again making a request to the OS, the process memory manager. And if that memory manager is successfully in allocating that memory, it will return the address. But again, that address is of type word star. So again, we'll have to typecast. And failure, it will again return null. That means it returns value 0. That means it's not pointing, it has failed to allocate memory and so on. On the same line, we also had a method called as realloc. Now you have to be very, very cautious when you use this particular function called as realloc. There are a lot of risk which is involved. So word star realloc, word star ptr size. Say you have a pointer which is already pointing to a block of 4 bytes or 10 bytes. And for some reason you wanted to extend the size from 10 to 16 bytes. You want to allocate 6 more bytes. Normally by using malloc and calloc, whatever memory that we allocated, we cannot extend it. But if you really want to extend it, if this pointer is pointing to a block of 10 bytes, and I can specify the new size, and if there is a possibility of extending that block of memory, it will extend. And there is no such possibility, we allocate a new block of 16 bytes and copy the previous 10 bytes into that 16 bytes and delete the previous 10 bytes. All those fantastic work can be done by using this function realloc. It changes the size of the object pointed to by pointer to the size specified by the size. It's not that straightforward, as I told you. The contents of the object shall be unchanged up to the lesser of the new of the old sizes and so on. So whatever size what you are given, you can increase the size, you can decrease the size. Everything can be done. If the new size is larger, the value of the newly allocated portion of the object is undetermined. Say I had a block of 10 bytes and now I extend it to 16 bytes. Now 10 bytes, so you are assured whatever data you previously had, that will get stored. What about the next 6 bytes? Undetermined. We cannot specify what will be there. If the space cannot be allocated, the object pointed to by ptr is returned. Say ptr was already pointing to a block of memory. There is a block of memory of say 100 bytes. And now you wanted to extend from 100 to 400. Now 400 bytes of memory is not available. So what you will get the same address which was referred to by PTR. You will be returning the same address. I'm quickly running through it. I'll go ahead with the demonstration. Don't worry. And then this important function called as release, because dynamic memory allocation would have been incomplete without ability to release the memory that we have allocated. So here we say free void star block. So whatever address that we pass, starting from that address, whatever amount of memory has been allocated, that will get released, and it will not return you anything. So whenever you allocate memory using malloc, calloc, or realloc, anytime you want to release that memory, you can go in for this particular function called as free. Say your pointer is pointing to some block of memory, and now I say free PTR. So this pointer is no longer pointing to that, it's pointing to that block of memory, but that memory has been released. The risk over here is the memory will be released. That is, it's sent back to the system. So it can be used for some other purpose, but your pointer still ends up pointing to the same location. So it becomes a dangling pointer. And to handle the dangling pointer, we should be storing null PTR or PTR into this particular pointer. So you have an array pointer pointing to array of 20 to 200 integers. That's 200 into 4 bytes. And I say free PTR. So the entire array will get deleted. But the problem is PTR still is pointing to the same location. So the piece of advice is, whenever you call free and you free that pointer by saying free PTR, free the block of memory pointed to by the pointer, the first thing that you should do is say PTR is equal to null PTR, PTR is equal to null is something that we should do first. Using a pointer after its memory has been released is a common programming error. Say you call this free PTR, so there is nothing which is being stored over here, and then you try to dereference when you try to use this particular pointer. That's a big problem. So guard against it by clearing a pointer. How do you clear a pointer? By just assigning it to null, assigning a null PTR to it. So pointer used for to free the memory must be of the same type as the pointer used to allocate the memory. That means pointer used to free memory must be of the same type as pointer used to allocate the memory. Attempt to free a block of memory which is already freed may result to crashing of the heap. That means you called this particular function 2 times. You said free PTR and again you said free PTR. Now that's going to create a problem, because earlier PTR is pointing to a block of memory. Once you said free PTR, this block of memory has been released. Now again, if you say free PTR, possibly from this point onwards, whatever is the memory that is there in the entire heap may get released, entire heap list may get crashed, and if the heap list gets crashed, the system may also crash. So there is quite a big risk that is there when you are working with free. Now next we have to go with new and delete. But before I go with new and delete, let me give you a demonstration of malloc, calloc, and realloc, and then we will go with new and delete. Thank you all. So we stop here today and we continue with a further discussion. Next session is again going to be a deep dive into some advanced concepts.